Nigeria's federal government has dragged the 36 state governors before the Supreme Court over alleged misconduct in the affairs of local governments, while seeking full autonomy for the 30 of government in the country. The Attorney General of the Federation, that's the AGF, and the Minister of Justice, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, on behalf of the federal government, instituted the court action against the governors, primarily seeking full autonomy for local governments as the third tier of government in the country. Well, joining me on the program today to, of course, shed more light on this are my guests. That's Shogbeye Eli, is a former chairman, the Gema local government area of Rivers State. He's also a legal practitioner and public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining me. I also have with...
be here on the conversation.
All right, Eli. Now, also joining me is Jide Ologun, is a legal practitioner, is joining me in the studio. Jide, thank you for joining. All right, let me start off. Great. Let me start off with you, Eli. I mean, you are a former chairman of a local government yourself. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of what exactly the details of this court injunction is all about, can you just take us through how it ran while you were in office, as against what we know is provided in the Constitution, particularly when it comes to finances?
Well, I would simply say this probably should be the best news for the third tier of government since the Dasuki local government reforms of 1976 came into play. However, my worry is this is a constitutional issue. The Attorney General might need a president of the executive arm of government to seek a constitutional amendment to detach the local governments from the states by amending Section 7 and 8 of the Constitution to make it an autonomous third tier government. But insofar as you allow Section 7 and 8 to remain in the Constitution, it doesn't matter how many times you want to seek judicial interventions. They will interpret the law as they say it. So if you want full autonomy for local councils, the best thing to do is to seek a constitutional amendment that will completely divest local government councils from the states. As it stands now, Section 7 guarantees democratically elected councils, and Section 8 gives the power to make laws and administer those councils to the states. And in that constitution too, you have the Joint Accounts Allocation Committee that empowers the governors to control the finances that come to the local government councils. No official local government council attends the Federation Accounts Allocation Committee meetings in Abuja, where the Federation account is butchered between basically the two arms of government, the two tiers of government, the federal government and the state governments. Of course, local governments are seen as appendages of the state. So what happens is that the state picks up the money for local government councils from the Federation Accounts Allocation Committee, and then from the Accounts Allocation Committee at Abuja, they come to the states, and now what they call the Joint States Local Government Accounts Allocation Committee. Now, let me tell you the flip side of this constitutional provision that is not good enough. The local government councils at the state level are at the mercy of the governors. In fact, the governor would empower the JAC meetings to be called at his own pleasure and discretion. So at the station where in 2015, Governor Isoke took over and refused to call JAC. And he did not call JAC until he left. And then when it was his turn to appoint cabinet committees, he did that for 3 years. We had the first elections in 2018 and the second one in 2021. So this is how these things work. This is not about seeking judicial intervention as the Honorable Attorney General has done with respect to him. I think a more radical approach would be to seek a constitutional amendment. However, there is a caveat.
Okay.
And I think the reason why I did that is simple. Through time, they are trying to amend the Constitution, and then the governors shoot it down at the level of the State Assembly. Because for you to amend the Constitution, you must have a two-thirds majority of both the chambers of the National Assembly, the Senate, and House of Reps, and then you need the concurrence from two-thirds of the states. And then what I've seen over time is that when it comes to local government councils, even assemblies at the state level themselves vote against local government autonomy. because most of the members of the House of Assembly are handpicked by the governor or the governor's cronies. So they don't allow for independence of the legislature for the council to come to pass. I think that must be the fear or the reason for the apprehension why the Honorable Attorney General Melende Senior Lateef Fagbemi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, is seeking judicial intervention. But I think the easiest route to take would have been to seek a constitutional amendment where Section 7 and 18 in particular are tinkered with to grant local government councils in Nigeria full autonomy.
All right. I mean, Eli, I'll come back to you. You made reference to Section 7 and 8, saying that if at all the, of course, senior legal practitioner wants to do anything about it, he should actually attack it constitutionally. But from what we understand, the Chief Law Officer of the Federation is actually pushing for this because he claims it's against the existing provision of the Constitution. I'd like to know Jide Ologun's take on this.
Let me explain further. Brilliant submissions by my colleague there. Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended states clearly that the National Assembly shall make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good government in Nigeria. And if you read further down, a subsection gives the houses of assembly at the state level the same power. And if you look at Section 232 of the same Constitution, it provides for the states coming to the Supreme Court at the first of, primary jurisdiction where there is a dispute. And if you look at Section 162 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it clearly established this concept of state and local government joint account. It's a constitutional provision. And that is why I agree with my colleague that the best approach is to go back to the National Assembly and probably lobby the houses of assembly.
So, I'm sorry to interject, but are we saying that the country's chief law officer is going against the dictates, the existing dictates of the law? Because what we are made to understand is that he's claiming that, the joint account, the institution of caretaker committee is against the provision of the Constitution.
Let me explain that.
So I really would want to break
that
down.
is not what the Attorney General of the Federation is focusing on. That may be the media comprehension of what is going on. The main contention now is that, fine, if you have the joint state and local government allocation, you are expected to have elected officers managing the local government areas according to our democratic tenets under the Constitution. So the federal government is going to court to say, you cannot have a governor, for instance, that won't even put the local government structure in place, and yet you are allocating money to that local, that state to disburse to non-existing local government areas, or in a situation where you have a sole administrator, a caretaker committee, when we don't even have a state of emergency. You see, and that is approaching it maybe through the window. And that's what my learned colleague just mentioned. Go back to this Constitution, separate this joint allocation. You see, I did a research on formal allocation of revenue in Nigeria. It dates back to 1946, even before we got our independence, when the Richardson Constitution gave autonomy to the regions and spelled out their responsibilities. Because the argument of the Attorney General now is that the President swore an oath to respect the Constitution, just like the governors also, and that the intention of this allocation is to bring development to the people. But then we have governors, as stated earlier, who are like, some of them are like teen gods. So they call the shots, and when you are the one appointing, not the people electing the local government leaders, then they are at your calls and beck, so you can handle them the way you like. And so what has been happening from experience, and I still had a discussion on this morning, is that this allocation comes from the federal government to the state government, meant for the local government, and let's assume 1 trillion naira comes in favor of the local government. The governor may decide to give the local government 15 billion out of the 1 trillion. And that is why the federal government is now saying, no, let's channel this payment directly to the local government rather than taking it through the state. But as long as you have that provision under Section 160 of Nigerian Constitution 1919 as amended, it becomes a difficult thing. So, and we need to thoroughly look into this. And then again, like I said, beyond even how money is disbursed to the third tier of government as recognized by Section 7 of our Constitution as a third tier of government, local government area, we also need to deal with the issue of corruption.
Well, we'll get to the aspect of corruption, but I also understand that there's an update to this story where we understand that the Lagos state government has actually reacted that they have been in compliance and asking the AGF to do due diligence. But let me go back to you, Eli. I would like you to, give an overview. Your time in office, what was it like in terms of the revenue, gotten from the federal government, as stipulated by law, and what eventually you got from the state, due to the joint account arrangement, and also from your own local government, the internally generated revenue. Can you give an overview of what it was like?
Well, the Official Secrets Act won't allow me to divulge that information.
You're out of office.
No, it doesn't matter.
By extension.
The Official Secrets Act would not allow you to divulge that information.
But that should be public knowledge, because you're a public, you were a public officer.
No, let me explain. Now you have what they call the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah.
So as a journalist, empowered by Section 22 of the Constitution, you can do your own diligence. It does not lie in my mouth to divulge anything here. However, the IGR of each local government council is dependent upon, 1, availability of resources, 2, the mechanisms to exploit those resources. And here is where we have the contradictions, inherent contradictions in our Constitution. If you have gold, for instance, in a local government council, and you are not empowered to mine it because they fall under federal control in the Constitution, they are in the exclusive list, what do? I have oil in my LGA, I couldn't mine it. So how do you fund the IGR? So these are the issues that we need to handle. When people call for resource control or talk about decision. At some point, Professor Wole Soyinka said this is not a constitution like something written in the smoke-filled mess room. All right? Officers' mess room. Hello?
I'm with you. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes. So it called for complete restructuring of, or do you know, because writing the French Constitution. I tend to agree with him because a lot of contradictions in our Constitution is not allowing government flow as it ought to. So rather than to deal with the book traps in that Constitution. When they go to Jack, when the governor convinced Jack through the Commissioner for Finance, the Accountant General of the State is there and all that, they'll give you what the governor feels you're entitled to. After they have made some deductions for primary health care, for primary education, and they give you the balance. Even the money for traditional rulers is deducted as source. The council are not allowed to pay the traditional rulers. They take the 5% for traditional rulers organized by government as source.
So at the end of the day, the amount given to you, what exactly, what is it used for? What can it do?
Basically, you have what you have to go home with, and you pay local government salaries, pay political appointees and elected officials, and then do 1 or 2 projects, and then wait for the next payday, next Abuja trip for fact to start, and then you come back
So,
to...
so what
happens?
What happens to the internally generated revenue that doesn't come from the federal government?
That's for internal management. And I'm saying that the way our country is wired, all right, local government councils don't have equal resources. Don't forget that. But even the ones that you have as it were, like ours is a purely rural LGA, where you don't have industries. The few operations I have here are oil operations. And other companies are answerable to the federal government, all right? The Department of Petroleum Resources is the regulator of the oil industry. A local government council cannot go and ask Shell, why should this pipeline pass here? You should come and pay us royalties. You can't do that. It's not within the province to do that. You cannot go and mine the oil. So what some people do now amounts of self-help, which is going to pour into pipelines and do what they call illegal bunkering, and then you're having the environment spoiled more. All right, what they call PUFA in my area. So you have entire mangrove flora and fauna destroyed because people are breaking into pipelines to take away crude for sale. Now you cannot tax those kind of illegalities. To say you want to draw your IGR from there, you cannot. So it depends on the resource. It depends on the councils. Each council has its own area of general revenue, but I'm saying that some revenues, some councils are so completely dependent on federal accounts, and they have not to show for it. So if you accept to think of the constitution allow for people to have access to the land and everything under the land or in the sea, to generate revenue and then pay tax to the center, you can never get this right. And so the little one that you're able to get from maybe building motor parks, collecting money from tolls, from bicycle licenses and all that, or maybe trailers park on the road and that money is the money that goes nowhere. Maybe the tax forces manage them. So you find councils perpetually broke. If you want the local government system to serve the grassroots, as the tension is, they have to break local government completely from the states and make an autonomous tier of government. So that way they can be accountable. Local governments should have their own judicial system, maybe upgrade the customary courts to be like the courts of the local government councils, maybe get them some local policing. They probably get to upgrade the legislative arm to be a pure independent assembly where the councillors can speak and make laws. Then when they have 3 tiers of government in local government level and local level, that will make sense. At the moment, it's a joke. And all of what I said is just on paper.
All right.
Maybe it becomes like Lagos Islands, Ikeja, some of the urban areas like Port Harcourt, where there are a lot of industries where you can tax companies and make some money as IGR. The bulk of the local government councils in the grassroots areas are completely drain pipes.
I mean, talking about taxes, some would also talk about multiple taxation, particularly for businesses at the federal, local, and also state level. But let me read an excerpt of part of the, injunction filed by the AGF. Now, according to that report, it said, and I'm quoting, it said that by the provision of the Constitution, there must be a democratically elected local government system, and that the Constitution has not made provisions for any other system of governance at the local government level other than the democratically elected local government system. It went further to say that the failure of the governors to put democratically elected local government system in place is a deliberate subversion of the 1999 Constitution, making reference back to the Constitution which they and the President have sworn to uphold. I'm going to you, Jide Ologun. We've seen cases where many governors put up caretaker committees and we don't really see elections hold in many local governments. Now the AGF is saying this is contrary to the provisions of the Constitution. And you've said that if at all the AGF is serious about this, it should go through the route of the Constitution as against heading to the courts directly. I'll need your reaction.
In good governance parlance, you describe that as abuse of office because the governor should not, of his own, refuse to allow elections into local government areas or whatever, however you describe them. And Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended declares clearly that the state shall abolish corrupt practices and abuse of office. And that is why we still need to go back to the Constitution. It was a scenario where the 36 governors sued the same federal government during the tenure of the former President Muhammadu Buhari, who gave the executive order 10 on the autonomy of judiciary and local government, and wanted to push the funding, recurrence and capital of the local government and to the states. And the state went to the Supreme Court also to say, no, we are resisting this. And the Supreme Court decided that it was unconstitutional for the president to have made that executive order. The same constitution. And we have 109 senators, 360 House of Reps members who are from the grassroots, representing the constituents over there. So if the intention is developing Nigeria, then go out there, amend these laws, make sure that what should be done. And don't let us forget, as we speak, the governors enjoy immunity. So it appears as if after the president is the governor. So, and that is why some of us feel that I'm not preempting what the decision of the Supreme Court will be. But I mean, you can read between the lines. There are, and that remains one of the major problems in Nigeria. We like to deal with symptoms while running away from substantive problems. We have issues we must deal with. Because why is it that the houses of assembly in the state are not concerned about the absence of deserved development at the local government level? So when you politicize everything and you know, and I appreciate what my colleague did right now. I spoke to someone who was a chairman of a local government also. In that office, you cannot complain. You complain the next day you are out. You see, so it's when you are out. In fact, he remains cautious while out. Some may, you know, so these are, and obviously, we don't have the deserved development. And that's why I made reference to the first formal allocation of revenue in Nigeria in 1946. And it appears today as if Nigeria would have been more developed under the colonial management than where we are today. He mentioned the case of oil theft going on, our wealth being taken by many. The first refinery in Nigeria was commissioned in 1965. So what are we talking about? So if the president should sit down with the Attorney General. I'm not preempting what the decision of the Supreme Court will be, but I'm just saying that, you see, if we are going to solve our problems, let's solve the problems substantially. The president can push an executive bill. There is what you call lobbying in the legislative parlance, you know, and that is why you have the lobby in the National Assembly and the Houses of Assembly. Rather than going to court, and the Attorney Generals will now be doing what you call firebrands. And the court will refer you to the Constitution. Go to Section 162 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended. You have not dealt with this joint account. It's still in the Constitution. You have not repealed it. You have not amended it. So what the federal government is trying to do now is to say, okay, you must have elected officers. You must have constitutionally elected local government administrators, or whatever you want to qualify it. But is there a penalty? Is there a consequence for a governor that refuses? So we should be serious governors. Some governors run a whole term without having elected local governments.
Because that would have led me to my next question concerning governors, you know, and even members of the House who are pretty much slow or even nonchalant when it comes to this autonomy issue. What do you think? And I'm going back to you on this. I'll leave you for now, Jide. I'll go back to Ali. What do you think can be done to ensure that these individuals comply, you know, to this, will I call it, provision?
Okay, Jide, let me also make a correction first. My name is Sugbeyi Eli, not Eli. I haven't said that. You see, this is a throwback to the Nigerian people. We're a country of deep intellect. Every Nigerian knows what the problem is. Like my learned brother said there, we prefer to deal with shadows, the symptoms, instead of dealing with the substance. See, we have a country where our problem is not whether or not we have laws or no laws. We have some laws that are not effective, but we don't have the courage to deal with amending those laws. All right? Our constitution was framed by the military. One would have thought that from 1999 to now, that's about like 25 years, would have had the courage to deal with certain aspects of that constitution, to streamline them with pure democratic practices. When they even say democratically elected councils, let me give you one of the scenarios of the joke. This constitution allows for the creation of state independent electoral commissions, right? And empowers them to conduct elections to local government councils. Are you with me?
I'm with you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. You want to look at the scenarios of the elections that come from INEC and the state electoral commissions. What do you make of the character of the elections that come from the states? The governor's party sweeps entire seats. In every state, that's been the pattern. If you say an exception, it is to make it look like, give a coloration of some bit of aligning the level playing field for everybody. That's not true. So what's the difference between the governor appointing cabinet committees, people of his choice, or ramming it down the throat of Nigerians in the states by giving the coloration of an election through the electoral commissions of the states appointed by the governor? So this is the reality we must deal with. We are simply running away from our shadows. 6 1/2 dozen are the same thing. If you talk about local governments being democratically elected, how democratic are those elections? How? You become a local government chairman when the powers that be in your states want you. Not because the people want you. That's why they're not accountable to the people. So fundamentally, we cannot be running from pillar to post on these issues. Almost summon the courage of our convictions to deal with these issues that arise. Local government councils ought to do better than this. If you go and read the Dasuki panel reforms on local government 1976, the goals are not this, but just like that one, just like what Justice Ways recommended one time on one of those government reforms, another one that came from Orosanye panel report on civil service on how to downsize government, we keep joking. These reforms that we advocate for have been people have been empowered to bring out way forward, white papers have been issued, but we'll never get implement them. And see, until we break away from the practice where the governor or the godfathers of that state decide who becomes local government chairman or becomes a councillor, everything we're doing will not work. It's a joke. So whether you do appoint cabinet committees or pass it through one state electoral commission where the governor's party must win, so all you need to be in the council to be on the ticket of the governor's party to become a local government chairman, then we're simply abusing the constitution. So let's deal with the fundamentals. It must have democracy bottom up, they must start from the grassroots. Make election of councils zero party, like part of option A4. Let those who are interested in running elections come out and stand on the way. On the day of election, appoint the committee that will conduct elections in each LGA. Make it a central event. So people queue behind the candidate or his photograph. And you can't write there and declare results. The moment they pass through that bureaucracy, why you appoint a board to run elections at local government level, the governor is simply legalizing or giving the legal cloak of what his real intention is politically via appointment of cabinet committees. That's the truth.
All right. I'm still going to stay with you. I mean, Jide made a reference to accountability and also corruption, in his summation, and I'll go to that, staying with you, Eli. Now, quite a number of times, even though we know that the account is pretty joint, but there seems not to be open books when it comes to accounting, even for the mega sums many local governments get. I mean, I tried asking you what the revenue structure was like, and you of course, quoted the law saying that, talking about secrecy of office, right? Even though I want to believe exactly. So I want to believe that that should be public knowledge. So it would have been easier if, say, the books were pretty open to know how much comes in internally outside what you get from the government, what it's used for, and maybe would even want to muster people to, push further for this fight. So I just want to know your take on the issue of accountability and corruption, and how you feel, this can be properly managed, and also open accounting when it comes to the books, as a former leader of a local government.
Okay, very brilliant question. Again, we'll go back to the fundamentals. The local government councils have what they call the legislative arm, where councillors represent the ward seats. They have the power of oversight on the executive. They have the power to represent the people, the power to make laws, in this case, bylaws. So they have the power to demand for accountability. But again, the leadership recruitment process is a problem we have in our country. Most of the councillors that we elect today are people who left universities or left secondary schools to have no jobs. So councillorship tickets have become like settlement patterns for political godfathers. And then when the council chairman sits down in office, these tendencies come and ask for jobs or contracts. And so at the end of the day, the councillors who should make demands of accountability of the local government chairman cannot do it, because most of the jobs that were given out in name of constituencies or whatever are to their godfathers. So there's a fundamental flaw in the accounting process. They cannot oversight the local government chairman, because more often than not, they are boys who have no experience in leadership. They are boys who just came from school or left school for years, have no jobs. So they see that at a first certain point in life. The local government chairman acquires cars for them, official use, gives them wardrobe allowance so they can change their clothes, give them legislative votes, and that is it. They don't ask questions. In fact, what I've seen even in our time, is that the councillors themselves will run back to the local government chairman to pledge loyalty and betray themselves to make look like we're chairman's boys, so they can get some more perquisites for office. That kind of thing cannot be accountable. And then even you go to the assemblies at the level of the state that has powers oversight local government councils, what happens there again is another charade. The chairman of the House Committee on Local Governments will come and bully the council chairman. And once he gets his own fat checks, his own kickbacks, it ends there. So in terms of dealing with thorough accounting at the authority of government, we must go back to that full autonomy, where there must be a means and way for punishments for breach of laws at the local government councils. The judicial system at local government council must be strengthened. If possible, convert the customary courts or magistrate courts to become courts that have the jurisdiction to punish offenders or breach local government laws. And then that way we can now say, okay, there'll be some kind of deterrence and people can sit up. At the moment, I don't see that happen. So the institutional support system for dealing with corruption at local government level is almost nil. I mean nil. N-I-L, nil. So you can't enforce it. You can't enforce it. See,
so the reason for, if I'm to get your line of thoughts correctly.
Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example as I round up on this.
Okay.
Before I became council chairman, I served in Ilorin in Kwara State. Now, the way the Ilorin West Council is wired, it's like a quadrangle, or a triangle rather. Ilorin West is the headquarters is in the same location where they have Ilorin Central Mosque, and then they have the Mayor's Palace. More often than not, the local government, what they call the F and GPC meeting at local government level, which is why you sit down to appropriate funds, which goes to where the Finance and General Purpose Committee meeting holds almost in the Mayor's Palace. And more often than not, the local government chairman comes from the mayor, so they just decide who takes what, and it ends there. That scenario that I say in Ilorin West is replicated in most councils across the federation, across the 704 councils. Councils are owned by certain persons at the grassroots, and they just use it for as their own share of the national cake. So when they ask for accountability there, you really have to tear open. You really have to do some serious surgery to free the system from the stranglehold of the strong men before you can have a system that can be accountable and can answer and deliver to the people. Outside of that, we're just joking.
All right, Jide, what's your take?
I fully adopt the submissions of my learned colleague, and this is the truth we shy away from in Nigeria. I disclosed the result of a research I did, that African population, Africa as a continent has a population of about 1.5 billion. in a world that has about 8 billion human beings. And this Africa holds 40% of the total resources of the world. So you can imagine God giving 1.5 billion out of 8 billion, 40% of available resources, and that region is still associated with poverty, just because of the greed of a few. So if we must rise above where we are, people should be sincere in coming to lead through service. I've mentioned this. Is there a senator that is not from a local government in Nigeria? Even if you are from Abuja, say you are from a part of, you have a grassroots. Is there a House of Reps member that is not from the local government? Is there a commissioner? Is there, even at the local government level? But are we bold enough to challenge the system and put in place a system that fits into the template of good governance? And accountability is key, transparency is key, development is key, and all those indices. And that is when someone like me can be persuaded that we even practice democracy. Because democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But if you look at the result we have as a nation in the world, can we say that the balance of the formula of people engagement is there, where you have over 135 million out of about 220 million citizens in the multifaceted poverty bracket? So when you put all this together, you keep asking yourself, are we serious about driving the change? And a man said, if you want your dreams to come true, you don't fall asleep. So we need to wake up. And it's these government structures we are talking about that will help us. But by and large, I want to say this start by accounting for our resources. Who are the oil thieves? Like what we have not mentioned here today, the issue of this godfatherism. Who are the people sponsoring candidates? You see, so, and that is why, again, I believe we come back from the Supreme Court, but I've given us a precedent of what happened when the 36 state governors engaged the president, the then president, Muhammadu Buhari, and the Supreme Court had to take a decision based on the Constitution. So let's see what comes out now. But we must hold governors accountable, hold local government chairmen accountable, hold the leadership of this country accountable, because the main assignment of good governance is creating commonwealth for common good. And until we begin to see that, then we may not be able to describe the kind of system of government that we run.
All right, Jide Ologun, thank you so much for your time on the program and also your summation.
Thank God.
Eli, thank you also for your contribution on the program.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure as always.